Now, in the last lesson, we looked at how we were able to pass variables from our server over to our template file using EJS and these little markers. Now, in this lesson, I want to talk about how you can use EJS to run code inside your template. So, for example, if we wanted to check to see what was the value of the kind of day that was passed in, and if the value was something like Saturday or Sunday, then we're going to render our H1 slightly differently than if it happened to be a weekday. Now, instead of simply saying it's a Thursday or it's a Friday, we'll actually name our H1 as our list title. So our H1 is going to instead be something like Thursday list or Friday list. And what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to check to see if the day is a Saturday or a Sunday. And in that case, I'm going to change the color of my H1 depending on that information. So if I were to write it out in plain old JavaScript, then I would say something like if the value of the variable kind of day is equal to the string that is Saturday, or if kind of day was equal to Sunday, then in that case, I'm going to render this H1 as Saturday list, or maybe say something like Saturday to-do list, Sunday to-do list. But I'm going to change the H1's style attribute to change the color when it is a Saturday or Sunday to purple. But if the kind of day was not a Saturday or Sunday, namely it was a weekday, then I'm going to change the H1 to have a different color. Let's say, I don't know, maybe change it to blue. So this is how I would write it out in JavaScript. Now, if you take a look at the EJS docs section, you can see that there is a part where it talks about the different tags. And previously, we've been using this particular tag, which, as it says, outputs the value of whatever goes inside the tag into the template. And that is how we managed to get the day of the week into our H1. Now, in this case, what we're doing is we're using some control flow, so namely an if and else statement, to check what is the value of that kind of day variable that we got passed in here. And if it is a weekend, a Saturday or Sunday, then we're rendering a different H1 style compared to if it was the weekday. So in this case, we need to use a different tag. And the one that we're going to be using is this one, which is a scriptlet tag. So it's not a full script tag because you can't write any sort of JavaScript in here, but it does allow you to use control flow, namely if and else statements, or else if, or switch statements, or while statements. And this allows you to render different HTML depending on what was the value of the variable that you got passed in to the template. So the special thing about this scriptlet tag is that you have to add it around any part of your code that is not HTML. So this is HTML, it's an H1 tag, but this is not HTML. So we can add our scriptlet tags in front of our JavaScript, basically. So I'm going to add a open angle bracket, a percentage sign, and then I'm going to end the line with a percentage and angle bracket. And then we're going to add one over here as well, the line of the else statement. And finally, remember every single little bit of your code that is JavaScript, you will need to add the scriptlet tags. And these scriptlet tags work on a line-by-line basis. So even if you had two lines of JavaScript that were next to each other, you still have to add a open and close tag on each line of the JavaScript. You can't just add a start one and add an end one. It doesn't work. So now let's hit save and let's try it out. So it says it's the Thursday to-do list and it's colored blue because we're landing in the else statement here. So let's try changing this to Thursday. And now we're checking if the kind of day is equal to Thursday, in which case render it with the color purple. And you can see when I update, this H1 is now colored purple. So the scriptlet tag allows us to run some basic JavaScript code, namely for control flow purposes. So we can render our HTML slightly differently depending on the value of the variable that we got passed in. Now, the reason why the scriptlet tag only lets you use control flow JavaScript is because in most cases, you want to keep your logic inside your server. And it's only in the cases where you're really changing something that is difficult to do inside the server, or it would be a lot quicker to do inside the template, do you actually use these scriptlet tags. And you see a lot of people in the wild abusing these, trying to stuff too much logic into what is essentially still the content file. Remember, HTML is for content. So remember, try to do all of your logic inside your server, and only in select situations where it really is about modifying the content based on the variable do you actually add in these scriptlet tags. Now, in the next lesson, we're going to build out the functionality of our to-do list. We're going to talk about how we can pass data from our template back to our server. So for all of that and more, I'll of course see you on the next lesson.